Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 2. I am Francis Edet, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government considers fresh measures to end terrorism. Federal government takes 3,657 civil servants before ICPC over IPPIS. Plus, Sri Lanka troops tear down forces camp outside President's office. We will bring you details of those stories and more in a moment. First in the news today is a report that President Muhammadu Buhari has reacted to the demise of the father of Senator Ali Ndume, Alhaji Buba Ndume. In a condolence message signed by spokesman Garba Shehu, President Buhari described the late Ndume as a gentleman and a great father who was an awesome inspiration to his children. In a message to the Senator, Ndume, Buhari said that he was profoundly touched by the death of the senator's father and prayed that Allah rewards his noble deeds with paradise. Recall that Senator Ndume announced the demise of his father on Tuesday, saying his late father, an accomplished community leader, was buried that day in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. Away from that, an outright ban on the use of motorcycles, popularly known as Okada, and the suspension of mining are parts of fresh measures being considered by the federal government to curtail terrorism. The National Security Council rose from a meeting at the presidential villa in Abuja with a resolution that a nationwide ban on motorcycle operations will cripple the movement of terrorists. The council said the suspension of mining will cut off funding sources for terror activities. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami dropped the hints in a chat with reporters after the council meeting chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari. According to Malami, terrorists have moved from the conventional ways of funding their activities to mining and ransom taking, making it necessary for the government to act. In the meantime, the federal government has said at least 3,657 civil servants had been taken before the Independent and Corrupt Practices and Related Offences Commission, ICPC, for their failure to get verified on the Integrated Personal Payroll Information System, IPPIS. The head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi-Sang, announced this when she appeared on the weekly ministerial media briefing organized by the Presidential Communications Team at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Yemi-Sang, who was accompanied by other senior officials of the Federal Civil Service, also said 61,446 civil servants in the core ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, have been verified, noting that another 1,618 applicants were found to have used illegal or fake letters, while 874 officers have been suspended from the IPPIS platform. She added that about 180 million naira was being saved monthly and about 2 billion naira annually from the implementation of the IPPIS.
Carried out a verification audit of all employment letters of everybody that is in service, and they wanted to compare the names on the employment letters with what they had in their own system. And they discovered that 3,657 workers did not present themselves for verification, CPC, and also stopped their salaries. We went to the 6 geopolitical zones to ensure that we were able to capture everybody, and as at today, we have verified 61,446 officers in the core MDs.
Meanwhile, federal government has projected to spend 6.7 trillion naira on petrol subsidy payments in 2023. Speaking at the presentation of the 2023-2035 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy paper in Abuja, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, said subsidy payment projection is based on two prevailing scenarios: business as usual or reform. Ahmed explained that Scenario 1, the business as usual, is assuming that the subsidy on petrol, which is estimated at 6.72 trillion naira for the full year of 2023, will remain and be fully provided for, while Scenario 2, the reform scenario, assumes that petrol subsidy will remain up to mid-2023 based on the 18-month extension announced early 2021, in which case only 3.36 trillion naira will be provided for. She, however, said both scenarios have implications for net accretion to the Federation account and projected deficit levels, noting that the federal government has recorded a 2 trillion naira budget deficit between January Limited, which has funded the fuel subsidy until June, will henceforth leave that responsibility to the Federation, and actions, she said, will create a strain on the economy. In another development, the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Mohammed Bello, has said that 21.029 billion naira is needed to complete the rehabilitation of the National Assembly complex. Bello, who disclosed this during an oversight tour of some projects by the Senate Committee on FCT, noted that no major rehabilitation work had been carried out on the building over the years. He listed other priority projects embarked upon by the administration to include rehabilitation of Federal Secretariat Complex, construction of Southern Park, provision of engineering infrastructure for Wuse District, rehabilitation and expansion of Outer Southern Expressway Villa Roundabout, and completion of B6, B12 and Circle Road in Central Area, Abuja. We move now to the legislature, where the House of Representatives has directed the Bureau of Public Enterprise, BPE, and the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, NDPHC, to immediately halt the planned sale of 5 power plants belonging to the 3 tiers of government. The House said the sales did not follow due process, adopting a motion of urgent public importance sponsored by the chairman of the House Committee on Power, Magaji Dao. The House asked BPE's Director General, Alex Okor, to desist from any act aimed at facilitating the sales of the 5 power plants until such sales are duly authorized by the shareholders at a formal meeting as stipulated in the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020. According to him, the plants were constructed under the National Integrated Power Project, NIPP, to ensure the stability of Nigeria's power sector.
In 2023, the same attempt was made to sell these power plants, and in the investigation conducted during the 2021 resolved that these power plants are not to be sold.
If federal government wants to do anything with its assets, that is fine, but they should do it with regard to their own shareholding.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is to delay the second reading of the controversial National Water Resources Bill 2020 till September, when the National Assembly resumes from its annual 2-month recess. The chairman of the House Committee on Water Resources, Sada Soli, made this known at the plenary, saying that the break will allow members to scrutinize the proposals in the legislation and note their observations. Recall that the bill had re-emerged on the floor of the House as that the new version of the legislation would capture all the interest of the states.
Way before this matter comes up for second reading, every single member is given a copy to digest, to read, to consult wide. We cannot play the ostrich, and knowing that the bill that almost threw this country up in flames is coming up again and just say, let members go through it.
In the meantime, the Federal High Court in Abuja has permitted a civil group to apply for and order compelling the Inspector General of Police to prosecute the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, over alleged perjury. Delivering a ruling in an ex parte application, Justice Inyangekwo granted the leave argued by the group, incorporated trustee of Center for Freedom and Public Advocacy, CRPA, through its lawyer, Ugo Nwafo, who alleged refusal of the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, to arrest and prosecute the former Lagos State Governor for supplying false information on oath in respect of his educational qualifications. Justice Ekwo held that the ex parte application was meritorious and granted it. He subsequently fixed November 1 for a hearing of the substantive suit. The Election Board JAM has pegged the deadline for the 2022 admissions for December 31, 2022. This is as the board also stated that it would no longer accept A-level result by the National Business and Technical Education Board (NATIB) for direct entry admissions. These were disclosed during the 2022 policy meeting organized by the board in Abuja. The JAM registrar, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, said the Minister of Education has approved 140 as the minimum benchmark for admissions in universities, 120 for polytechnics, and 100 for colleges of education.
We are allowed to recommend or admit any candidate whose total score is below the minimum score proposed by the institution and approved by the policy meeting. The totality of all scores being used for ranking the candidate shall be taken into account in determining the percentage of minimum score.
What is worth doing is worth doing badly, because whatever is worth doing should be there. And once something is worth doing, whether you do it well or you do it badly, you are under obligation to do it.
At gas stations in Cameroon's capital, jerrycans in hand are becoming common. Reports say most fuel stations have run out of diesel in recent days, and those that have are now rationing it. In the wake of scarce supplies of diesel, transporters have increased fares. Prices of goods too are shooting up. Recall that on the international market, oil prices have soared, and the state is finding it hard to continue subsidizing fuel. According to reports, fuel subsidy costs the Cameroonian state over $1.2 billion a year, and Yaoundé has come under pressure from the International Monetary Fund (IMF) to stop them. In the meantime, the rising price of basic food is reportedly worsening South Africa's food security crisis, which could increase social instability and spark a repeat of the devastating July unrest. Food Forward South Africa, an organization addressing hunger in poor communities, says that every month 30 million people in the country are experiencing food insecurity, and in the Eastern Cape, 12 children died. Opportunistic crime and riots that will spiral out of control as a result. Report says South African consumer inflation surged to a 13-year high last month, mainly driven by rising transport and food prices. On the foreign scene, a congressional inquiry has heard that former U.S. President Donald Trump watched last year's Capitol riot on TV at the White House, ignoring his children and aides who begged him to rebuke the mob. The House of Representatives Select Committee used its 8th hearing of the summer to draw a timeline of Trump's activities over 187 minutes on 6 January 2021 as a mob of his supporters raided Congress. The panel is seeking to build a case against Trump. One of two Republicans on the Democratic-led committee, Adam Kinzinger, said Trump did not place a single call to law enforcement or national security staff. Reports say Trump, who has been hinting he may run again for president in 2024, has dismissed the inquiry as a kangaroo court designed to distract Americans from the disaster of democratic governance. In the meantime, Sri Lanka's police and military troops have forcefully removed anti-government protesters camped outside the presidential office, for months, demanding the resignation of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who fled the country in the early hours of July 13th, and Wickremesinghe, a key Rajapaksa's ally. Social media posts showed officers dressed in riot gear pulling down protest tents and arresting demonstrators outside the presidential office at Galaface 2 days after the crisis-hit country swore in a new leader. Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Tunduwa has confirmed 9 men were arrested and will appear in court later. Cesar Oshola claims record 5th CAF award. To stay with us. Much thanks for staying with us. On a business news, amid a projection by the federal government to spend a whopping sum of 6.7 trillion naira on fuel subsidy next year and a major shortfall in government oil revenue this year, economic and energy experts have predicted tougher days ahead for the economy states and Nigeria. Recall that the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, had released the 4-month fiscal report of the economy during a public consultation on the 2023-2025 medium-term expenditure framework. According to the overview of the 2022 fiscal outcomes and update on 2022 Federation revenue performance presented by the Finance Minister, the gross oil and gas Federation revenue for the first 4 months of 2022 failed to meet the expected target, falling from 3.12 trillion naira to 1.23 trillion naira, representing a 39% performance. Ahmed said the subsidy projection was based on business as usual or reform scenarios, noting that the first scenarios assumed that subsidy would be retained and fully provided for. Still in our business, Director General, World Trade Organization, WTO, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has advised the federal government to ensure the conditions spelled out during the 12th WTO Ministerial Conference that took place in Geneva, Switzerland, on access to fisheries funds are met. The WTO DG gave this advice during a visit to the Minister of State, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Mariam Katangum, in Abuja, emphasizing the need for the country to benefit from WTO fisheries funding. Okonjo-Iweala's visit came barely a month after the WTO's Council of Ministers meeting, which was held in Geneva between June 12 and 17th, with a major focus on improving trade, health. Footing mechanism is envisioned to support developing and least developed countries in implementing a prospective agreement to curb harmful fisheries subsidies. In Hull, the federal government is set to begin the implementation of the National Surgical, Obstetric, Anesthesia and Nursing Plan NSO-ANP 2019 through 2023. The head coordinating unit, Department of Hospital Services, Ministry of Health, Dr. Obiajulu Ogbo, disclosed this while presenting the NSO-ANP working document to the Acting Chief Medical Director, National Hospital, Abuja, Dr. Aisha Umar. Ogbo said that the plan was developed in line with a World Health Assembly resolution of 2015 that states that surgical, obstetric, anesthesia, and nursing care are important components of Universal Health Coverage, UHC. She added that the 5-year plan, which aims to strengthen existing infrastructure and equipment, achieve access to surgical care for both adults and children by the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions.
Surgical, obstetrics, anesthesia, and nursing care to spread it across all levels of the government. So to make it just like the mandate of the ministry, to make healthcare accessible, affordable to the masses. We are just disseminating the policy, the plan at this stage. So the plan is at the level of the implementation. It will be reviewed and then we can give you.
Still in health, the Minister of State, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade, the licensing provision of the TRIPS waivers agreement for COVID-19 to establish vaccine production plants for the country. Katagum, who made the call at the 9th African Day of Substandardization 2022 Symposium organized by the Standard Organization of Nigeria in Lagos, explained that following WHO's declaration of the coronavirus as a global licensee to enable them to start manufacturing vaccines for the next 5 years. According to her, both the public and private pharmaceutical companies should take advantage of the opportunity to ensure that Nigeria starts production of vaccines not only for COVID-19 but for other infectious diseases in case of future pandemics. The minister also called on Africa and Africans to pay attention to promoting homemade solutions to some of the challenges confronting the continent. In sports, the Super Falcons have turned Mohamed V in Casablanca today. After seeing their chances of winning the Women's Africa Cup of Nations for the 10th time quenched by host Morocco, the Falcons will hope to make it 3 out of 3 when they face the Copper Queens in Casablanca, having dominated their previous meetings, winning 6-0 in their first clash at the 2014 edition before defeating the Queens 4-0 in Ghana in 2018 on their way to a 9th title. This is only the 3rd time since the women's tournament began in 1998 that Nigeria would play in a 3rd-place match, winning one and losing the other. Recall that despite being reduced to 9 players following the sending off of Rasheedat Ajibade and Alimatu Ayinde, Falcons held Morocco and forced the game into a penalty shootout. Still in sports, Super Falcons and Barcelona striker Asisat Oshola has beaten Zambia's Grace Chanda and Ajara Nchot Njoya of Cameroon to claim the CAF Women's Player of the Year award for a record 5th time, while Senegalese superstar Sadio retained his men's title at the award ceremony held in Rabat, Morocco. Oshola is now the sole record holder for the most award wins, thus stamping her authority on the continent. After receiving her record-breaking award, an elated Oshola dedicated the award to her teammates. Recall that Oshola was the only Nigerian nominee at the 2022 CAF Awards after Falcons coach Randy Waldrum, who was originally nominated for Coach of the Year, was dropped from the final shortlist along with Monday Gift and Super Eagles duo Moses Simon and Akinkumi Amao.
African Player of the Year in the women's category, Asisat Oshola. Can you please give us a little speech?
Asisat.
Good evening, Africa. On an individual.
On our entertainment news, the 7th season of one of the biggest reality TV shows in Nigeria, Big Brother Niger, is set to premiere on Saturday, July 24, 2022. Reports say just like the previous season, the BB Niger Season 7 launch will hold for 2 days, July 23rd and 24, 2022, introducing the housemates. Media personality Ebuka Obiu Chendu also returns as the host of the show. Still on entertainment, with the feat of releasing her 10th album entitled Imisi, inspirational singer and songwriter Shola Allyson recently staged an electrifying performance for a graceful journey. With a total of 10 albums in 20 years to her credit, Allyson, who burst into the music scene in 2003 with a hit album Eji Oworo, spoke on her evolution, saying the 10th album is not really different from the usual theme of hope, encouragement, worship of the Almighty, and love. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You've been watching Spectrum News at 2. I am Francis Edet. Good afternoon.